I don't want to
Mm,
romanticize neurodiversity. I've spent years in psychiatric institutions.
mm,
I know the hard edges of it. And I would
yeah.
be the last person who'd be like, oh my God, whatever. But I've come to think of neurotypicality as whiteness. Let me explain what I mean. I don't actually think there is a neurotypical person. I think what
Mm,
there is a really dominant ideal. And here I'm not speaking about your cosmology. I'm really speaking about
mm, mm,
colonialism. Yeah, there's a really dominant modality of organizing bodies that is taught
mm,
very
mm,
early in my culture. It has to do as much with how you hold your body, so how you hold your head. That's a really big part of it. The question of posture, the question of looking, the question of kind of the ascriptions on the face are really important to that. And then a certain, of course, way of mobilizing knowledge.
mm,
And some years ago, I had this extraordinary shift in my thinking, and it came through the work of Fred Moten. So I had just written a book, and called The Minor Gesture. I'd been writing about neurodiversity for quite a while, but I had begun to sort of think about the systemic operations of whiteness as neurotypicality. And then from there, I had made this claim that it was a kind of primary modality from which other forms of differentiation would sort of fall out, including indigeneity, blackness, and so on. And Fred wrote me and he made this comment. He said, Erin, I think Black life is neurodiverse life. So I spent the next decade thinking about that sentence. And what I understood Fred to be saying to me, but I never wanted to ask him because I wanted it to be mine. So I didn't like go back and say, what did you mean by that? Was that this kind of colonial mode, it isn't given outside of that colonial mode, both for good and for bad. So you're a Black man driving the car. It doesn't matter how well you've mastered neurotypicality. You're still the Black man driving the car. In the end, the police will stop you and organize you under those conditions. So you can adhere to it. You can be an Obama. You can get the best degrees. You can talk like a white man, whatever. But ultimately, you will be excluded from that modality. And when I say that, I don't mean by that neurodiversity is relative. I don't think it is. I think there's a really big difference between, I'm not autistic. I share a lot of things with autistics, but I'm not autistic, and so on and so forth. But in my view of things, the perceptual limitations, and here again, I'm not speaking how you're talking about it in the cosmology, but the perceptual limitations actually on the side of neurotypicality, because it's such a constrained way of encountering the world. Now, the neurodiversity, like just to speak of my own experience, is considered a threat, right? I mean, if they lock me up, is because they're afraid that I'm gonna leak, right? Like I'm gonna overspill, and perhaps in the overspilling I will draw attention to something that will bring things out of kilter. And I totally understand cosmologically that you don't want everybody to be bringing things out of kilter when you're trying to be attuned to those relational systems that you're talking about. But it seems to me that we're always in a kind of dynamic expression of those tendencies.
Well, all there is altered states. There's no baseline state. Everything you do is an altered state. So you're responding to the signals, which I promise I'm going to get to a better description of those. You're responding to the signals of land and kin around you all the time. And this puts you in altered states, especially when you have that distributed cognition, consciousness that is extending out into all your relations around you all the time, constantly, and moving from one altered state to another. Ceremony is a big altered state, but it's important that you leave that madness of ceremony behind in the ceremony. That's why you finish that. And you don't do that on your own. It's different on Turtle Island. You all have vision quests and stuff there where you do your own thing, but we don't. We always do these things together, and we make sure everyone comes out and nothing gets left behind and nothing gets brought back across that shouldn't. That's really important. And I guess as to autism, I think that's an economic construct as much as anything else. There's not more cases of autism coming up all the time. And you can't just attribute that to better diagnosis and and attention on it. It's about neoliberalism and the way worlds of work have changed and the way people's lives have been individualized so much that each person has to be a self-managing neoliberal subject. And so suddenly worlds of work moved away from things we do communally, but also just, it's not like focused attention tasks that you can just keep doing. Autism wouldn't become apparent as a problem that would limit your capacity to access the things you need to survive. But it is now. And so therefore, people need care rather than just care being taken care of by being in a group of large extended family in a community. Care just kind of happens with minimal heavy lifting from any single person. That's labor now, care, but it's unpaid labor. And that's where your economies get out of step with things, when care is not the center of your economy. Care is something that requires trapped people to take care of for free.
I know, I think about, we just recently had the first MA given to a non-speaking autistic, Adam Wolf, and I've known Adam for a long time. But Adam's MA wouldn't have happened without the constellations around him, including changing what a course is, changing what an evaluation is, changing what knowledge is. But also Adam went into autistic catatonia for a year, which is very little understood. But my feeling of autistic catatonia is that the body is so overwhelmed by the world that it goes into a total freeze. And so it's actually an absolute intensity of movement, but it looks like the body's frozen. And in Adam's case, I think was a really direct relationship to just the horrors of existence. It was a year, I mean, I'm thinking about the care and the way you're talking about it, was a year of finding the moments of expression and moving with them. And so over that period with his mom and with his surrounds, we would say, Adam, when there's a moment, it's the moment. And in that moment, we'll gather. It can happen at any time. You call us, or we Zoom in, or we meet. And those are going to be the moments of learning. And I think a lot about how in the world in which we live, the moments in which I live, the moments are prescribed. And so obviously we're falling out of them all the time because it may not be the moment for learning, or it may not be the moment for expression or dynamism. And I'm giving you a segue here for the signals because I can tell that we're going to lose the time. Maybe you want to say something about what you were saying before in terms of how they work.
I mean, that's all really important, because when you end up with your governance and your economy as a system of signals, when that comes out of alignment with land as a system of signals, then you've got a problem, because your economy needs to be responding in real time to signals from the land, so that when the right time is for different resources and how much there is and what you need to do to care for those. I don't know, the Indigenous economy is an increase-based economy, so that's connected to increased ceremonies. But the idea of increase is creating abundant reserves, you'd say in Western economic terms, natural resource reserves, that you're making these abundantly regenerative and interconnected. And so you're doing things in that system of signals. So I'm thinking about what I'm doing now. People would say it's compulsive or it's a fidget, but I'm always working on something. So I'm burnishing different tools and things like that while I sit here. These things, it's the land that's directing me to do that. I'm using this piece of whalebone as a burnishing tool. That's something I've been making in dialogue with some Irish fellows about fox law, because I'm trying to figure out what we need to do with these foxes here that are killing everything. How do we bring them into better relation? Because they were trafficked here and they're no willing voyagers. So how do we bring them into better relation? But this whalebone, this is part of a larger whalebone that I actually took to Canada when I was with the Anishinaabe there. And so we feasted that whalebone there in ceremony. And then when we came back, it's something that I've been given to carry, and I had it for 10 years, carrying it around. Finally, after that, it started moving, so I knew what had to be done with that. And then when that was finished, breaking it up and making lots of different carvings with it, And it's the right place to do that here, Bunurong country, because this is big whale story country here along the coast. There are women's sites there where the whale birthing bowls are. They travel all the way up to where you are, these whales, and come back. They migrate. And so we're connected in that way along those waterways. And here close to the coast, I'm in a catchment area where there's creeks that flow. Not creeks anymore, just drains mostly. And they flow to the Yarra River, which then goes to the sea. And there's burren, ants here. I watch these ants closely. And right now, it's not their mating season. It's cold time now. It's not their mating season, but they are participating so much in mating of other animals, birds. And it's like, hang on, isn't it springtime when the birds mate? And all the flowers that come out. Oh, is it springtime? Well, no, there's acacia flowers, yellow ones going now, lots of different flowers. And these are signals for things to happen. And so the wombats, a big marsupial that they burrow. Usually they only come out at night. In this season, they start moving around in the daytime because they like to warm up. And they always crap up high on a rock or a log or something, because that's a signal. But when it comes out, it's a different smell, and it's different when it's done in the daytime, of course, because it dries differently. And that's a signal for so many things. Like the quolls that are mating, native wildcats, and so many things mating. All the birds that are mating, the lyrebirds. Lyrebirds are doing their call, and they're mimics, so they're mimicking chainsaws and heavy machinery reversing and going beep beep beep. They do all those sounds now. These are all signals. Big eagles' nests that are constantly maintained, but all these things are cooperating. The bowerbird that does the most amazing mating dance, that's not his season for mating now, but he's participating in the mating ceremony of all these other species, because now they're flocking. And they're usually quite solitary, but they're flocking together and they're doing these murmurations that signal and are part of the mating. They make other animals feel sexy because it's their time to be doing that. And so that turns on the lyrebird, and that turns on the turkeys. So they get scratching, making these compost. They make compost heaps, like perfectly, like scientifically done, constant temperature compost heaps for their eggs. There's so much going on right now.